The stranger and the whisper. Wind cut across the valley like a dull knife, dragging the last breath of daylight with it. The sky had turned the color of tarnished brass, clouds torn and low, the kind that promised rain but only ever gave dust. Cole pressed his weight against the splintered gate, trying to force the hinge back into place before the storm broke. The boards creaked like old bones. His hands were cracked and raw, skin the color of the soil he'd been working since sunup. The wind pushed harder. The chain rattled. Then footsteps. Light, uncertain, too soft for a man, too desperate for a wanderer. He turned. Through the silver-gray curtain of dust came a figure no bigger than a scarecrow's shadow, barefoot, stumbling, dress torn at the knees. A girl, maybe 12, maybe younger. Her hair hung in wet ropes across her face, and in her eyes was the kind of fear that made grown men pray. She stopped a few yards from him, chest heaving. For a long second, the only sound was the gate's groan and the wind clawing at the fences. Then she whispered, barely more than a breath. "Sir, may I hide under your coat?" Cole froze. The hammer in his chest struck once hard. His coat flapped in the wind, the same long duster that had seen more storms than most men see summers. He didn't answer. Couldn't. The girl took a step closer, eyes darting behind her, as if the dark itself was chasing her. "Please," she said. "They're coming." Her voice cracked on the word coming. Cole's eyes flicked to the horizon. A ridge of canyon stone stretched out there, sharp and broken. No one rode that trail at dusk unless they meant to. The air had that waiting kind of stillness, the kind a man learns to fear after years of running from gun smoke. He dropped the gate. It slammed shut, chains swinging loose. Without a word, he unbuttoned his coat and held it open. The girl stepped forward, trembling, and disappeared beneath it like a frightened bird. Her small hands clutched at the hem as if it were armor. He felt her shaking through the fabric. "Inside," he said finally. His voice was low, gravel worn smooth by silence. She hesitated, then nodded from under the coat. Together, they crossed the yard, the old boards creaking beneath their boots, the barn door slamming somewhere behind them. The wind carried a whistle that wasn't wind at all, the faint ring of iron on stone. Horseshoes. Cole's head turned, slow and certain. He saw them then, 5, maybe 6 flickers of light crawling along the canyon edge. Lanterns, moving steady, hunting steady. He opened the cabin door with a push of his shoulder. The hinges screamed. "Go on," he murmured. The girl slipped past him into the dim light. He shut the door behind her, dropped the bar across it, and leaned his back against the rough timber. For a while, neither spoke. The cabin smelled of rain and ash and the faint sweetness of dried apples. Firelight jumped along the walls, catching on a row of dust-coated picture frames no one had touched in years. The girl stood near the table, eyes wide, clutching the coat around her shoulders. Her feet were bleeding. Cole crossed to the shelf and poured water into a tin cup, setting it in front of her. She stared at it like she'd forgotten what water was. When she finally drank, her hands shook so badly half of it spilled. "Who's coming?" he asked. She swallowed hard. "Men." Her lip trembled. They burned our home. Said Papa wouldn't sell. Said the land's theirs now." Her words came in fits, breaking against the sound of the wind outside. "Mama told me to run. I did. But I heard him Logan, saying they'd come after me too. Said Red Jack, don't leave no loose ends." The tin cup hit the table with a clatter. Cole's jaw tightened. A long moment passed before he moved again. He walked to the mantel, eyes tracing the revolver that hung there, rusted but clean, like a relic buried in time. His hand hovered over it, but didn't touch. The girl's voice came again, softer now. "You ain't gonna let him take me, are you?" He didn't turn. "What's your name?" "Sarah. Sarah," he repeated, as if tasting the sound of it against the years of dust in his mouth. "They hurt you." She shook her head. "Not yet." Outside, thunder rolled over the ridge, dragging a long growl across the valley. Then came the sharper sound, distant, steady, unmistakable. Hoofbeats. Cole moved to the window and blew out the lamp. The cabin fell into darkness, firelight shrinking to a whisper. Through the slit between boards, He watched the canyon mouth flicker again. Lanterns bobbing. Closer this time. They found the trail, he muttered. Sarah gripped the edge of the table. We can run. He shook his head. No running tonight. The words came out like iron. She watched him, small and fragile against the fire's dying glow. In his stillness, there was something not peaceful, but waiting, like a coiled spring long held tight. The hoofbeats grew louder. Voices carried on the wind now. Rough laughter, slurred curses, men sure of their prey. Cole's hand drifted toward the revolver again. Stopped, closed into a fist. He looked at Sarah. Her face was streaked with dirt and tears, but her eyes were clear, wide, trusting. The same eyes he'd seen once before, in another place, another lifetime. He turned away from the window. Down the hall. Last door. Closet's at a false back. Stay there till I tell you. But, go. His voice cut through her fear like a blade. She nodded, clutching his coat tighter around her shoulders. The hem dragged behind her as she ran down the hall, bare feet whispering against the wood. The door shut soft. Cole exhaled slow. He stood alone again in the dark. The hoofbeats stopped outside the gate. Metal clanked. A voice called out, taunting, familiar, wrapped in a grin Cole hadn't heard in a decade. Well, I'll be damned, the voice said. Ain't this the silent man's place? Cole didn't answer. He reached up, took the revolver down, and held it in his palm. The metal was cold, heavy, honest. The wind rattled the shutters. Another voice laughed. Jack says the girl's in there. Best come out peaceful, old friend. Cole closed his eyes, thumb brushing the cylinder like a prayer. Outside, boots hit the dirt. The old dog in the barn began to bark. And over it all, the storm broke open, rain and thunder crashing together. The storyteller's voice slips through the noise. And that was the night the silent rancher heard footsteps from the past. The night a whisper under his coat called a ghost back to life. Tracks in the dust. The pounding on the door rattled the hinges like thunder. Cole sat in the dark, back to the wall, revolver heavy in his palm. Rain bled through the cracks in the roof, dripping into a shallow puddle by the hearth. Outside, voices barked orders and horses stamped. Search the barn, someone shouted. She's here. I seen her tracks in the wash. The sound of boots sloshing through mud. Metal scraping. The creak of the front step. Cole cocked the hammer. The sound cut through the noise like a snake's hiss. Then silence. Only the storm spoke. He didn't move. A shadow crossed the window, one of them testing the door handle, slow, cautious. Cole's breath stayed even. The man muttered something, spat, and moved away. When the hoofbeats drifted toward the barn, Cole rose, slow and silent, and crossed the cabin. His boots made no sound on the wood. He paused by the back room, pressing his palm against the door. Still there, he whispered. From the darkness inside, a small voice answered, Yes, sir. Her whisper trembled like wind through dry grass. Stay put. He turned, moving back toward the fire. The faint orange glow barely lit the revolver in his hand. He looked at it for a long second, thumb brushing the worn steel where the finish had rubbed off years ago. Then he lowered the hammer and set it back on the table. Outside, someone screamed. A horse, spooked by lightning. Then laughter followed, rough and cruel. The kind of laughter he remembered too well. Cole's knuckles tightened. He grabbed his oilskin from the peg and stepped to the window. Through the rain, he could see them. 5 men, maybe 6. Long coats, rifles glinting, their leader's red scarf bright, even in the dark. Jack Redmond. The name scraped through his chest like old glass. Jack was shouting orders, his voice soaked with whiskey. Search every inch. That little stray can't hide forever. Cole hand her over once he remembers who feeds the crows round here. Cole turned from the window. The fire spat as water dripped into it, hiss fading into the low thunder. He sat by the table, elbows on his knees, staring at the revolver. For a moment, the world shrank to firelight and memory. Gunfire. Dust. The preacher's wife falling, her hymn book open in the dirt. Jack laughing while Cole dropped his gun and walked away. 10 years gone, and he still saw her face in every flash of lightning. A knock jolted him back. It wasn't at the front door. It came from the closet, the false wall. Soft, hesitant. Sir. He rose. You shouldn't. I'm scared. Cole opened the door, just enough to see her face, pale in the dark. Ain't nothing to fear as long as you're quiet. She bit her lip. Those men, they're the ones who... He nodded. I know. You know them. His eyes went distant. Used to. The wind slammed against the house, whistling through every crack. Why'd they do it? She whispered. He didn't answer right away. The question wasn't meant for him. Not really. He looked past her into the small, empty space where she'd been hiding, just rough boards and old quilts. Then, softly, 'cause they never learned how to stop talking what ain't theirs. Her eyes filled. They took my home. My mama. He didn't let her finish. Drink this, he said, handing her a tin cup. It's rainwater. Clean enough. She took it with both hands. Her fingers were blue from cold. After a moment, she whispered, You're gonna make him go away, aren't you? He stared at her. The firelight caught the scar along his jaw, turning it into a dark line across his face. I said I wouldn't kill again. She looked confused. Why not? He gave a dry, tired smile. 'Cause when you've seen enough death, even justice looks like sin. Outside, a gunshot split the night. Cole froze. Boots pounded. Someone shouted, He's in there. Sarah flinched, spilling the cup. Cole took his coat from her shoulders and draped it around her again. You stay low. Don't move till I say. He stepped into the main room, closing the door behind him. The revolver felt heavier this time, like it knew the truth before he did. Through the wall came the scrape of boots climbing the porch steps. Then a voice, Jack's voice. Cole. Silence followed, thick as tar. I know you hear me, old friend. Been a long time since the Valley job, huh? I heard you went soft. Thought maybe we could pay you a visit, stir old ghosts. Cole said nothing. Jack's boots creaked closer to the door. You got something of mine. A girl. Don't make me take it personal. Thunder rolled again, shaking the shutters. Inside, Cole stood like stone. You always were the quiet one, Jack went on. Guess that's why they called you the silent man. Shame what you turned into, hiding from who you were. You think you can wash off the blood? Cole's jaw tightened. His thumb slid the hammer back. The door rattled. A pause. Then Jack chuckled, low and mean. You never did finish what you started, Cole. But I'll give you a chance. Hand her over, and I'll let you keep breathing till morning. The laughter outside was joined by another voice. He's probably too scared to answer. A second later, the unmistakable click of a rifle being loaded cut through the storm. Cole moved to the window again. Through the rain-streaked glass, he saw Jack's gang spread out in a half circle, lanterns swaying, guns raised. Their horses snorted, restless. He leaned his forehead against the cold glass, eyes shut. For a heartbeat, he heard only the rain and his own breath. Then the voice inside him he'd buried long ago whispered, They won't touch her. He opened his eyes. The girl's reflection hovered faintly in the window behind him, watching. He turned and met her gaze. You said your pa was sheriff once. She nodded, small and solemn. Then he raised you right. You know what's coming. She swallowed hard. Are you going to fight them? He looked at his revolver. Don't reckon there's another way. She took a step closer, voice barely a whisper. I'm not afraid. He almost smiled. Your ma be proud of that. Her chin trembled. She said the world's got good men still. She said to run until I found one. Cole turned away before she could see the storm behind his eyes. Outside, Jack shouted, Last chance, Cole. You got 1 minute before I burn that house down. Cole holstered the revolver and blew out the fire. Darkness swallowed the room. Then, quiet as breath, he said, You found one, kid. He stepped toward the door, the rain hammering like war drums. And as he laid his hand on the latch, the storyteller's voice drifted in like smoke from an old campfire. And so it was that the silent man remembered the sound of his own heart again. For when the devil comes riding with fire in his hands, even a broken soul finds reason to stand. The fire at Red Valley. The first bullet punched through the window before Cole reached the door. Glass scattered across the floorboards like hail. The lamp on the table shattered, spilling oil that caught the fire's last ember, flame crawling hungry up the wall. Cole dropped low, drawing the revolver. His breath was steady. The old instinct, the one he'd buried beneath 10 years of silence, rose like a ghost behind his ribs. Outside, men shouted, boots pounding in the mud. "Keep 'em pinned." Jack's voice barked through the storm. "I want that girl alive." The next shot splintered the doorframe inches from Cole's head. He rolled, pressed his back to the hearth, and waited. Smoke bit at his throat. Through the shattered window, he saw the flicker of torches, 6, maybe more, circling like wolves. Cole raised the revolver, sighted on the nearest light, and squeezed the trigger once. The lantern burst, and a man screamed, clutching his face as fire rained down his coat. "Cole!" Jack shouted, voice half a laugh, half a snarl. "That you? Thought you'd forgot how to dance." Cole didn't answer. He moved along the floor, low and quiet, boots sliding through broken glass. Smoke thickened. The dry walls hissed under the climbing fire. He reached the door, counted the hoofbeats outside, and fired again, one shot clean. The man nearest the porch fell with a wet thud. For a moment, the gang hesitated. Then Jack's voice again. "Don't just stand there. Light him up." Torches arced through the rain, hitting the porch, the eaves, the roof. The drywood caught with a roar. Flames leapt skyward, wind-fed and merciless. Cole ducked back, coughing, eyes watering. The ceiling groaned above him. "Sir!" Sarah's voice, muffled, frantic, from the back room. He turned toward the hallway, smoke swallowing the path. "Stay where you are," he shouted. "I can't breathe." He hesitated only a second, then ran, through the haze, through the burning room, and tore open the closet door. The girl stumbled into his arms, coughing, eyes wide with terror. "Get down low," he rasped. "Crawl. Follow my boots." She did, clutching the back of his coat. Together they pushed through the smoke, every breath a blade. The cabin shuddered as part of the roof collapsed behind them. Sparks rained like red snow. They reached the root cellar door. Cole yanked it open, guiding her down the narrow steps. "Stay here. Don't come out till I say." "No." "Sarah," he said, voice steady but soft. "You got my word." She stared at him, trembling, then nodded. He handed her something, a small silver locket, its chain dull with age. "It was my girl's," he said quietly. "Keep it close." He shut the door and turned back to the inferno. The porch was a wall of heat. Flames licked at the rafters. The wind screamed through the valley. Cole stepped into it, revolver steady, coat flaring behind him. Jack stood at the front gate, hat brim low, red scarf snapping in the wind. The fire painted his face in gold and shadow. "Well, hell," he said, grinning. "Didn't think you had it in you." Cole walked down the steps, every motion deliberate. "Didn't think I'd have to," he answered. Jack laughed, spreading his arms. "You were the best I ever rode with." "What happened to you, Cole? You used to know how to take what you wanted." Cole's voice was calm. "Learned to want different. Still got that preacher's ghost in your head." "Huh? Thought maybe you'd buried that along with your daughter." The words struck like a blade. Cole's eyes flicked to him, and the calm in them hardened to steel. "Watch your mouth, Jack." Jack's grin widened. "Or what? You'll shoot me like you should have back then." Cole didn't move. The fire behind him roared, throwing sparks across the yard. Jack drew first. The sound of it, the sharp hiss of metal leaving leather, was all Cole needed. His revolver came up and barked once. Jack staggered back, hat spinning off into the mud. "Still fast," Jack muttered, hand clutching his shoulder. "But not fast enough." Gunfire erupted from the shadows, Jack's men firing wild. Bullets tore through the rain, slamming into the porch, ripping through boards. Cole dropped behind a water trough, firing back with slow, measured rhythm. Each shot found its mark. One man fell, then another. Lightning split the sky. For an instant, the whole yard glowed, dead men, fire, and one silent figure standing against it all. Then the world went dark again. A shout cut through the chaos. Behind him! Cole spawned too late. The crack of a rifle echoed, and pain exploded in his side. He dropped to one knee, clutching his ribs, breath shallow. Boots splashed through the mud. Jack approached, holding a shotgun now, teeth bared in a sneer. "Always figured you'd die quiet," he said. "Guess I was right." Cole tried to lift the revolver, but his hand shook. Jack leveled the shotgun. "Ain't personal, friend. Just business." Before he could fire, a sound tore through the storm. A gunshot, small, sharp, echoing from the house. Jack's body jerked. His eyes went wide. The shotgun fell from his hands. He stumbled, turned halfway, and there she was. Sarah stood in the doorway, the old rifle braced against her shoulder, Cole's coat still wrapped around her. The fire's glow lit her face in gold and ash. Smoke curled around her like a halo. For a second, everything stopped. The wind, the fire, even the rain seemed to hold its breath. Jack took one step toward her, then dropped to his knees, blood dark against the mud. He fell without a word. Cole stared, breath ragged, pain forgotten. Sarah's small hands trembled as she lowered the rifle. "You said they wouldn't touch me," she whispered. He nodded slowly. "And they won't." She dropped the gun and ran to him. He caught her, one arm tight around her shoulders, the other pressed to his wound. The fire hissed behind them, spreading into the open night. "It's over," she said through tears. Cole looked past her at the rising flames licking the horizon. The rain turned to steam where it touched them. "No," he murmured, voice fading. "It's just beginning." He tilted his head toward her ear. "When dawn comes, you run east. Don't look back." She shook her head fiercely. "Not without you." He smiled, faint, tired, proud. "You already got the best part of me, kid." The fire roared louder, swallowing the ranch. The storyteller's voice rose above the crackle, low and rough as gravel. That night, Red Valley burned like Judgment Day. But out of the ashes, two hearts kept beating, one that learned courage and one that found peace. For even the quietest man leaves an echo if he stands when it matters most. The coat and the gun. The first shot cracked through the morning stillness, tearing a splinter from the porch post inches from Thomas's head. He didn't flinch. The sound rolled across the dry valley like thunder chasing lightning. "Stay inside, Annie," he said quietly, though his voice trembled. The little girl's small fingers clutched the hem of his coat. "They found us," she whispered. He nodded once, eyes narrowing toward the ridge where a dust cloud grew. 3 riders, moving fast, guns already drawn. His revolver lay on the porch rail beside him, but his hand stayed still. "Go on," he murmured. "Behind the stove, like I showed you." "But now." Her bare feet padded across the floorboards, then vanished into the shadows of the small cabin. The sound of horses drew closer, hooves pounding, leather creaking, men yelling. Thomas stepped off the porch and into the blinding light. The desert wind kicked up the hem of his long coat, the same one Annie had hidden under the night she came. He'd sworn he'd never lift a gun again, sworn he'd buried that man in the war. But here they came, ghosts from someone else's grave. The first rider, a big man with a red beard and a scar down his face, raised his rifle. "You should have handed her over, old man," he roared. Thomas didn't answer. He saw it all at once. The direction of the wind, the horse's stagger, the tremor in the man's finger. His body remembered what his mind had tried to forget. The rifle flashed. Thomas moved. The gun on the rail snapped into his hand like it had never left. One shot clean fast. The rider fell, red beard vanishing beneath the tumble of dust and hooves. The second outlaw fired back, bullet grazing Thomas's shoulder, spinning him half around. He stumbled but didn't fall. The pain wasn't new. It just woke something buried deeper than fear. He reloaded on instinct, thumbs slapping brass into the chamber. The second man swung down from his horse, rushing the porch. Thomas waited. Let him come close. Let him see the eyes of the man he thought was just a rancher. The shot tore through the outlaw's throat. He fell backward into the sand, boots twitching. Only one rider left. He was young, barely more than a boy, with wild eyes and shaking hands. He stared at the bodies, then at Thomas. "You ain't supposed to be nobody," he stammered. "You're just some ranch hand." Thomas holstered his gun slow, eyes steady. "That's right," he said, "and I'd like to stay that way." The boy's eyes darted toward the cabin. "She's worth money, old man. You don't even know what she is." Thomas's hand hovered near his gun again. "I don't need to." The boy hesitated, then turned his horse to run. But the shot rang before he could kick his spurs. His hat flew off. He slumped forward, sliding from the saddle before the dust settled. Silence. Only the wind. Thomas stood there, chest heaving, the smell of gunpowder and sage in the air. His shoulder bled through his shirt, but he didn't move until the echo died. The door creaked behind him. Tiny footsteps. Annie peeked out, clutching the edge of the frame. Her eyes were wide, not with fear this time, but something else. "You were fast," she whispered. Thomas turned slowly, lowering the revolver. The weight of it felt strange in his hand, familiar, unwanted. He knelt, setting it down on the step. "I used to be faster," he said softly. She came closer, eyes drifting to the bodies in the sand. "Will more come?" He looked out toward the horizon. The sun was climbing higher, burning gold through the haze. "Maybe," he said, "but they won't find what they're looking for." Annie frowned. "What are they looking for?" He studied her small face, the freckles, the dirt, the quiet strength. "Something they don't deserve to have," he said. "Something that don't belong to them." She tilted her head. "Me?" He didn't answer, just reached out and brushed the dust from her cheek. Inside the cabin, he poured water into a tin basin, washed a shoulder, and tore a strip from his coat to bind it. Annie sat on the floor beside him, watching. "You hurt bad?" she asked. "Not bad enough. You could have been a soldier." He froze for a moment, the sound of her voice like a stone thrown into deep water. Then he said, "I was." Her brow furrowed. "Before the ranch? Before a lot of things." The wind rattled the window panes. Outside, the sun baked the desert clean again, erasing blood from dust. That night, a storm rolled in from the mountains, lightning flickering like gunfire far away. Thomas sat by the fire, the girl asleep under his coat. He looked down at her small form, the steady rise and fall of her chest. The coat that once hid his sins now hid something worth saving. He stared into the flames. "You brought trouble, little one," he murmured. "But maybe you brought something else too." The fire popped. Somewhere in the dark, a coyote called. When dawn came, he was already outside, hitching the wagon, packing what little they had. The graves of the three men stood crooked by the fence, marked with nothing but silence. He turned toward the horizon, east, where the law ran thinner, but the chances ran truer. Annie rubbed her eyes, stepping onto the porch. "Where we going?" "Somewhere they don't know our names," he said. She looked up at him, small hand reaching for his. "Can I still hide under your coat?" He smiled. "Just a flicker, rare as rain." "Reckon that's what it's for." The wagon wheels rolled forward, creaking across the dry earth. Behind them, the wind covered their tracks. And years later, when the tale was told, of the silent rancher who outshot three men to save a nameless child, they said his coat still smelled of smoke and sage. And they said the girl, when grown, wore that same coat when she rode into her own legend. Because some stories on the frontier never truly end. They just ride on under different stars.